Wallahi alim. You know, then
It just sounds like what the Christians say.
then they say, let's look at manuscripts that came before the one that Brubaker is saying is wrong.
Some of the earliest
Do we have that word in there? And in fact, you do have the word in there. Then we look at the oral tradition. Is that word recited this way? And it is recited that way. Now, brother, you tell me. Is that an honest scholar? Yes? And what does Brubaker say in reply? Because I think Yasser Qadi made a video against him as well.
They both study at the same place.
Doesn't matter, but his methodology. But Yasser Qadi openly criticized his methodology. What is Brubaker's response? I don't respond to these people. Yes?
No, it wasn't his response.
Yes, it was. I've seen his response.
His response was...
He says I don't respond to these people because, he said, to be fair, they're not on my academic level.
Wait, that's not what he said. I've seen his video.
What he should have said is, let me look at what they've said, and do I have evidence to counter? You're bringing me a book from Brubaker.
Yeah, a scholar. A scholar who's respected
and
scholar
I've quoted,
on the level of Yasser Qadi.
And I've quoted you, scholar, that this boy would serve her tea. Okay? This Brubaker would serve her tea. Angela Newitt.
Okay, but the consensus of modern scholarship is that we do not have...
What does Angela Newitt say? Angela Newitt, the foremost expert on the Quranic textual criticism, she says, the argument of preservation is over.
It is over. We know it wasn't preserved. We know it's over.
She said the number of manuscripts that we are now finding that confirm what we have today.
There are differences in what the Hafs Quran is today.
Brother, you know what? You're like a broken record, really.
Yeah, but you're saying the same things, and I'm saying the same things.
Okay, so I go back to my original point. Show me the mechanism, how 95% of the Muslim population are reading Hafs and Asim, and if they make a mistake of even a vowel, they will be corrected by somebody else, purely from memory.
That doesn't have anything to do with what I'm saying.
Show me the mechanism of how that happens, please.
That has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
Without preservation.
I am saying that the original manuscripts have differences in with the standardized Hafs Quran.
Okay, let me then...
The game is over.
Since you're repeating something, I'll repeat what I said to you as well.
Is
our primary source is our primary source of preservation through the written text?
I would say yeah.
No. Which scholar says
Where
that?
does the oral tradition
Which Muslim scholar has said that? Which Muslim scholar said that? Which scholar said that?
So basically the manuscript tradition you have has not been preserved.
Shall I explain to you why the oral tradition is far superior to the written text? Shall I explain that to you? Shall I explain the mechanism to you why it is the case?
Most Muslims don't know the Quran enough. So
Shall I explain that to you? Shall I explain why the oral text is so strong? Shall I explain that to you? Okay, let me explain that to you. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ recites the verses to the people as they are narrated. Some of the companions, they memorize those verses immediately. Now look at the miracle of the Quran. The Quran is revealed over 23 years. Yes? Is it revealed in order? From Surah Baqarah to Surah... No, it's not. It's revealed what to the onlooker would seem random. Yes? The Quran was often a consequential revelation. Something happened. The Prophet gets wahi. He gets revelation there and then. Yes? He gives those verses and then he instructs the people. These verses are to go in Surah Baqarah and they go before this verse and that verse. Did the verses have numbers at that time? No. So the Prophet would instruct them that these 4 verses or these 5 verses have to be placed between those verses. Now the Quran is revealed over 23 years. Subhanallah. Can anything be memorized when it's being revealed in this way? Yes? But it was. Yes? But it was. Right? Now, those companions that have memorized the Quran had students. We have records of this. And they taught them the memorized Quran. Did they learn it from the Mus'haf? From the binding of the Quran? No.
They differed about what was meant to be in the Quran.
Brother, relax. We're getting to that. We're getting to that.
You're taking a long time.
No, we're getting to that. But there's a lot of nuance to this argument.
Okay.
It's not a yes or no little
argument. What I'm hearing so far is that,
hold on. So now those students have students and we have a record till today. Brothers and sisters have ijazah in the Quran. Who are your scholars? They'll pull out the scroll. My teacher was from here, my teacher was from here, this is the name of my teacher, right the way up. Now, you have multiple lineages from the very first century of Islam. Some ending up in Syria, some ending up in Spain, okay? And you go to Mauritania today, I told you, they don't even memorize it from the Mus'haf. They can't afford the Mus'haf.
They don't have it.
It's still being memorized by the oral tradition.
But most
No. Hold on a second. I'm getting to the crunch line now.
Okay,
the punch line.
let's be quick, yeah?
Now, when these different lineages travel all over the world, and today you have a 6-year-old or 5-year-old who is reciting the Quran in Sudan, and one who's reciting the Quran in China, how is it possible that if he makes a mistake of a letter or a pronunciation, that the other one is able to correct him orally without looking at the Mus'haf?
Okay.
How is it possible? Now, I'm just finishing now. Now, the written text, you can burn all of the copies of the Quran. That phenomena of preservation exists till today. We witness it every day in the mosque. When the Imam is reciting the Quran, does he look at the Mus'haf when he's... No, he's reading from memory. Different parts of the Quran. When he makes a mistake,
we correct him.
We correct him.
We don't have the Quran either.
We don't have the Quran either.
Yeah, but what do you correct him based on? Do you correct him based on the Walsh interpretation of it?
Did you hear what I said to you about the oral tradition?
Yes, okay, so are you telling me
Do you believe that it's robust?
Are there different oral traditions?
No.
There's not different oral traditions?
No.
So someone who memorized the Quran in a place that he's using predominantly the Walsh Quran is going to have exactly the same tradition as someone all the way across the world.
Brother, can I just explain something to you, yes? Okay. The tradition that I explained to you, show me where the flaw is on that tradition.
Oral tradition?
Yes.
1,400
Yes,
years.
show me the flaw in that tradition.
Because oral tradition changes varying on languages and cultures.
Okay,
yeah?
I agree,
Different
it does, I agree,
different ways of saying different things.
I agree, it does.
Right, so now you end up with different variants.
Yes.
Even in the oral, you're going to have people that say different things.
Totally agree with you.
Okay, cool.
That
So
happens to
therefore
everything else, I agree with you.
Yes, therefore, you cannot say that the Quran has been perfectly preserved.
Yes. Okay,
cool.
So hold on. So this...
That's all it is, mate.
This always happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Always happens. Does it happen with the Quran?
Yes, it happens with every book.
Has it?
I'm including the
Can you give me
Torah,
evidence? Show me the evidence. Show me the evidence on that.
Okay, so whenever a Quranic scribe writes down the Quran, if he writes it wrong or he makes an error, what happens?
You made a claim. You made a claim.
Okay, I'm asking you, what happens?
No, you made a claim.
What the scribe writes down?
Your claim was that the oral tradition always changes.
Over 1,400
years.
Yeah.
Always changes, yes?
Based on culture, based on language,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So if it's anything else, other than a divine book that is promised to be preserved, I agree that happens. I agree with you, okay? But now you have to show me.
If I show you...
now you have to show me. Why is it then that we don't see this in Islam?
Of course you do. If I wanted to memorize the Quran, if I was in a specific place, I think it's Morocco, and they use the Walsh Quran in some places there, if I studied that and I memorized it, congratulations, I now have a wrong in oral tradition according to the one that comes from the Hafs.
Why wrong? Who said it's wrong? Who said the
Walsh
is wrong?
Different oral tradition than the Hafs one, right?
So what you're saying to me is that in Morocco they read the Walsh Quran, yes?
Right.
Can they trace their lineage back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
I don't know. Is that yes?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Do they have an oral tradition?
I guess they probably do, yeah.
From our own books, are we told that there were different readings that the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked Gabriel to recite the Quran with?
Yeah.
We do. So what's the problem?
The problem is, you cannot say what the original intent was, because the original manuscripts do not conform to any of this.
You're going back to your same argument over and over again.
Okay,
no, but what you're doing is you're using the same argument, hoping for a different outcome. And it's not going to happen.
You haven't actually addressed it, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when they wrote this stuff down, the earliest manuscripts, it differs from what is the standardized version of the Hafs today. Do you not see the problem?
Do we rely on the oral tradition or the textual tradition for the Quran that we
If I
have
wanted to learn
today?
about the Quran, would I read about it or would I listen to it?
As an Arab or a non-Arab?
A non-Arab.
Non-Arab. You'd have to obviously get the text, wouldn't you?
Right, but the text doesn't conform to the manuscript.
Where does the text come from?
Well, the text comes from manuscripts, that's how you
No.
trust
So you're wrong again. It comes from the oral tradition.
The
Did you know that today, when a printing press...
No, we know that the Hafs...
Do you know that when a printing press prints a new Quran, who checks that Quran? Who's that Quran given to check it?
You give it to, you check it based on manuscripts.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong again.
You would not check manuscripts.
You're wrong again. You know who you give it to? You know who we give it to?
People who claim to memorize it.
Oral reciters,
Isn't that a little
memorizers.
But you've already said that there can be different variants of that.
You know why? You know why? Because as I've explained to you, it's a concrete, robust
Concrete. That's really
tradition.
dodgy. The ancient manuscripts do not confer with the standardized.
Do we rely on manuscripts?
According to you, no, which is weird.
So what's the problem?
So it doesn't matter what your manuscripts say. It doesn't matter if they were written in the life of Muhammad. Doesn't matter.
I'm not saying that at all. Now you're making a different argument.
Portfolio was likely written in the time of Muhammad.
Let me ask you a question.
So we can look at that and see if it conforms to the.
Let me ask you.
today.
I gave you quite an explanation on the oral tradition of the Quran, the memorization. Yes. Please point out the flaw as to how that could be corrupted.
Different oral traditions change over time. To suggest
Show me
that
the mechanism. Don't just tell me what you think.
Like
what
like
mechanism?
Chinese whispers.
So Chinese whispers.
Yeah, like if you say
Okay.
something.
Okay. And things change. Yes.
Yeah, different languages, different accents.
What would
different
you
regions,
what would you expect to happen 14 centuries
I would
later?
expect different versions of it.
Hundreds of versions, thousands of versions.
In the earliest days,
No
that
agreement,
was the
no
problem.
agreement of which Quran is the
But
Quran,
in
right?
Muhammad's, or in the early caliphate's time, there was that.
Okay, show me
So
where. Show
you
me.
already had it.
Show me
literally a few years within the Quran being written.
Who said that this Quran is lost? That we don't have the Quran.
No. The Quran was being recited in different versions, and over.
You're going through the same thing over and over again now.
I'm probably going to consider.
You're going through the same territory that we've already discussed.
Okay, in which case then there isn't anything more for us to
Yes.
talk about.
So
yeah?
now, explain to me, not that Chinese whispers or this, that, or the other.
Which we know is a real thing.
Okay, but if Chinese whispers are a real thing, have you ever played Chinese whispers?
Yes.
Is the message even recognizable after 10 or 15 people?
No.
No. If there were 50 different groups,
I recommend this book, by the way.
if there were 50 different groups who were each
Yes,
given
YouTube channel.
who were each given the original message,
Yeah.
and they all performed Chinese whispers, would all of the Chinese whispers at the end of the 50 people in those chains be identical?
No.
Would you say that was probably impossible?
It's very unlikely.
Very unlikely, yes?
Yeah.
Why do we have one unified reading of the Quran?
I don't think you do. And I think your manuscripts support the fact that at some point they were probably having an old
Why do we
tradition that's
have
different
one
from what you have
unified
today.
reading of the Quran today? Tell me.
You don't have one unified reading of the Quran today.
I explained to you that.
I explained to you that your
95
old manuscripts do not conform with
brother,
what you have written today.
95% of the Muslims read Hafs al-Asim.
Right, but there are
Do you
also
disagree?
other-
Do you
No,
disagree
no,
with that?
I don't
Okay,
disagree
you agree with
that.
that. Okay, hold on. Now we're making some progress.
I don't think so. yeah.
If 95% of the Muslims Ummah is reading Hafs al-Asim, explain to me how all of them, 1.8 billion, out of that 1.4, 1.5 billion, 1.67 billion, are reading an identical Quran. Explain to me the mechanism of how that happens.
We're just going to go back and forth because I'm just going to say your earliest manuscripts don't fully.
Brother, how does that happen?
How does that happen? Because scribes make errors over time.
How is there one unified reading today? How does that happen?
My friend, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying.
No, I think you're deliberately misunderstanding what I'm
No,
saying.
I have a book from a scholar that shows you the manuscripts are different, and you're saying.
Look, let me explain something to you, yes? You're picking one scholar who agrees with your opinion. Yes?
No, this is the majority view.
Hold on a second. This is
The majority view of scholarship
this is one
is that there are
scholar.
new manuscripts.
Okay.
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay.
Yes, the Caddy agrees
Okay.
with this.
Majority scholarship.
He takes a
Okay.
different view of it.
Major-
but he
okay.
agrees with what this guy's saying.
Majority scholarship, yes? Do the majority of scholarship look at the oral tradition?
Well, no, they look at manuscripts.
They don't, do they?
The oral tradition cannot be quantified.
Hold on a
because
second.
Until it's written.
I've asked you a very simple
I
question.
understand something.
Do the bulk of scholarship look at the oral tradition of the Quran?
The bulk of scholarship is concerned about your manuscripts.
Brother,
Your manuscripts
why are you
are
making this
earliest written.
complicated?
I'm not. I'm telling you
The
how
answer
we
is
know
no,
from
isn't
a
it?
historical
The answer
point of
is
view
no.
what is written.
So the answer is no.
Right, because
don't
you
look at-
cannot, from a historical
Hold on a second.
perspective, know what
Whether
was
you
said
can,
1,400
whether you
years.
can or you can't needs to be demonstrated.
It's a historical method.
Hold
you
on a
can't do
second.
it.
Hold on a second. You've agreed with me that the scholarship that we have today is only interested in the textual criticism.
Yes.
Right.
Because anything else is not tangible.
Anything else is not tangible.
Yes, because I can't prove what people
Okay,
1,400 years were saying.
hold on a second. So I showed you a mechanism of preservation through the oral tradition.
Which I cast doubt on.
Hold on a
because
second.
There are many reasons why you would doubt.
When you doubt something, you have to give reasons why you doubt it.
Here's my reason. The earliest manuscripts do not conform to what is thought of as today as the actual Quran.
Then you have to provide evidence as to why that reality has materialized.
Because the earliest manuscripts do not conform to what you think is the oral tradition today.
Which would then mean
Either one of them's wrong.
Which would then mean, logically, rationally, you would have multiple, uncountable readings and recitations of the Quran today.
In the early period, you did.
So, okay, so now you're arguing that in the early period, you had multiple readings.
Yes, and Uthman standardized them.
How? Okay, when did Uthman standardize them?
Since Sahih al-Bukhari.
When did he standardize them?
In the early period, I don't know exactly what time. But in the reign of Uthman the Caliph.
Okay, so Uthman took the Caliphate 13 years after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed away. 13 years. Do you know how many Huffaz, memorizers were around at that time? How many?
Well, there was a doubt as to whether or not certain people may have perished in the Battle of Yamama, depending on whether.
I didn't ask you that question.
Well, that's relevant to what you just asked me.
No.
You just said how many were there. I said I don't know.
Yes.
But there are.
So just say I don't know.
Okay, but there are records that say there was a question of whether or not some parts have been lost.
But that's an irrelevant point, and I'll explain to you why. I'll tell you why it's irrelevant. If I ask you how many there were, it's irrelevant how many there weren't. It's irrelevant. Or how many may have died.
If people had concerns about it and they thought they needed to write it down, then that demonstrates to me that there is a concern about losing material.
Okay, so I've asked you the question.
Which is relevant based on other parts of the hadith.
So I've asked you the question. How many people had memorized the Quran at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and at the time of Uthman? How many?
I can't tell you how many. I don't know the number.
It would have gone into that many hundreds, if not thousands, of people.
Okay, and many people died in the battle as well.
How many people died in the battle?
I don't know.
Some 70 or 80 people died in the battle of Yamama.
70 or 80 people
Huffaz.
died?
Yeah, they were the Huffaz, the memorizers. Not everyone.
It was a very small battle.
Well, not everyone who died in the battle was a Huffaz, was a memorizer.
Okay, all right.
But there were 70 or 80 who died. So as I explained to you, that there was a fear that if this continued and all of the Huffaz, the memorizers, were killed, we might lose the Quran. Now, I asked you the question, did that fear materialize?
I don't know, that's a question for scholarship.
The answer is no. Right, from scholarship.
So, my understanding is that there are certain things that we believe were originally meant to be in the Quran that were not actually recorded in the Quran.
You're raising a different point here now. You're raising a completely different point here. I'm talking
whether or not
listen to me. I've explained to you.
Quran.
I've explained to you the mechanism of the oral tradition.
Okay, so the oral tradition.
Hold on a second. I've also explained to you evidentially that if corruption had occurred, the different lineages of the Quran that ended up in different parts of the world, you would reasonably see different Qurans being recited today. And in fact, throughout history, you would have battles. This Quran is correct and that Quran is wrong. This Quran is correct and that Quran is wrong. We don't see any of this. What we actually see is what you would expect to see if there was preservation through the oral tradition, which is one unified reading. So as I explained to you, and I challenge you, go onto YouTube, watch an 8-year-old, 7-year-old who has memorized the Quran, who is leading the prayer.
How would they have memorized?
How? Just as they memorize in Mauritania today, when they can't afford the Mus'haf.
So you're telling me that they don't actually read the Quran and they memorize?
They don't have to. This is the beauty of the Quran.
That's
why you're so astonished.
Yeah, no. It's because it's nonsense. That's why.
Why is it nonsense?
If I took a long list of information and I passed it on to a 7-year-old,
yes.
I'm going to tell you now there's going to be a difference. The way
I totally agree with you.
The way that you would solve that.
I totally agree with you.
You would go back to the source, but you're telling me that you don't do that.
You see, you've raised a very important point there.
You don't go back to the source.
You've raised a very important point there. If you give lots of information to a 7-year-old and expect that 7-year-old to repeat it exactly how you taught it, it's impossible.
Okay.
Yet today, we have a 7-year-old in Sudan and a 7-year-old in China who are reading the same Quran. And if one makes the mistake of a vowel, he doesn't stretch a letter enough the other child will correct him, not looking into the mushaf.
It's not convincing.
Through memory.
But it's not convincing.
Now, the point here is this. Now, the onus is upon you to show me the mechanism of how that happens.
I'm going to explain to you the problems with oral tradition over long periods of time, given that they go from different cultures to different areas where different languages are spoken, and that you will lose information or you will gain information.
Has that happened?
I believe it has, yeah.
Doesn't stretch a letter enough, the other child will correct him, not looking into the mushaf.
It's not convincing.
Through memory.
But it's not convincing.
Now, the point here is this. Now, the onus is upon you to show me the mechanism of how that happens.
I'm going to explain to you the problems with oral tradition over long periods of time, given that they go from different cultures to different areas where different languages are spoken, and that you will lose information or you will gain information.
Has that happened?
I believe it has, yeah.
Can you demonstrate? Can you show me the evidence?
I can show you in the earliest manuscripts.
No, can you show me? No.
So you don't like manuscripts?
No. Can you show me the evidence of that happening today, where you have different Qur'ans being recited all over the world?
Does not conform to many of your earliest manuscripts.
Can you answer the question? Can you show me evidence?
If you talked about the biblical text, and
I'm not talking about the biblical text.
Yeah, but I'm saying you would never accept it.
No, of course.
You would never accept
I would accept it if they could demonstrate to me.
What, an oral tradition?
If they could demonstrate, yes, absolutely. If they could demonstrate to me that we have an oral tradition.
And you wouldn't say things like, Chinese whispers.
Let me finish. If they could demonstrate to me that we have an oral tradition, this is the James. This is the actual Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This is their oral tradition, okay? And we have lineages coming out from these scholars, right? Who taught hundreds, thousands, and now millions of people. And guess what? Every recitation of the Bible is letter for letter, word for word correct. You know what I would have to say humbly? That, you know what? Maybe I don't accept that this is from God, but I would have to concede that the only rational possibility is that there has to be preservation. That this could not have happened the way you're saying, Chinese whispers.
We know there wasn't preservation in your written materials, your earliest written materials, not preservated.
Okay, so who is saying, according to our written material, the Quran is not
Daniel Brubaker.
Daniel Brubaker.
Yeah, he's a contemporary scholar to Yasser Qadhi.
Daniel Brubaker is what? Sorry?
He's a contemporary Aramaic Quran expert who studies the earliest manuscripts, and he has said that they are differences between the earliest manuscripts and the standardized 1924.
Which work of Daniel Brubaker are you referring to?
Well, particularly his book. He wrote a book that was like a popular.
We debunked that book in various
This
ways.
is the brother who debunked it, by the way.
So you're talking about
He was one of the brothers who debunked it.
examples or so.
Yeah.
And what does the examples demonstrate?
Demonstrate differences between the standardized Hafiz Quran and the earliest manuscripts you have. They also demonstrate the existence of polypsis, which is manuscripts that were written over in a parchment or vellum with actual new words.
Let's talk about Daniel Brubaker.
So you added new words.
So Daniel Brubaker wrote a book in which he's saying there are corrections in the manuscript traditions.
Yeah.
Did he, let me ask you this question, because I'm sure you have read his book, you've understood his book, you've understood his methodology, and then you've verified that it's a robust methodology, so conclusions are correct.
Mainstream scholars.
Did you hear what I just said?
Yes.
So you've read his book, understood his methodology, so it's a robust methodology you agree with, and the conclusions you are agreeing that is correct. So let me ask you, a particular manuscript, he's saying there seems to be a correction happening here about a particular word, right?
Yeah.
So, did he then tell you, or tell us, that from the other contemporaneous manuscripts from that time period, either earlier, at the same time, or just a little bit later, from around those other manuscripts, so we are talking about witnesses from other manuscripts, not only one isolated manuscript, has he done that in his book, and what did he say when he did that?
You mean has he compared multiple manuscripts? The answer is yes, he has compared multiple manuscripts.
So
he mentions in his book particular ones that are thought of as being, by Muslims anyway, as Uthman copies. Most scholars say they're not Uthman copies, they come much
let me give
later.
you the first example of his 20 examples, right? So how many other manuscripts has also the same corrections that he compared?
Well, the corrections are often unique to particular manuscripts, right? Like you wouldn't find
let me ask you again. When we want to demonstrate something has been corrupted, because he says corruption in manuscript, right? So we should find.
it's a change or
So we should
insertion.
find changes.
Or an insertion, or a removal, or
Do you know his title of his PhD thesis?
no.
Intentional changes, something along these lines, right? So basically, he's saying this kind of corruption.
Well, we know that there was, because we know, for example,
No,
that
no,
there
no. Let's not talk about that. When you say
let
we
me
know,
explain what I'm talking about.
when you say we know, have you read his
let me
thesis?
just explain what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
have you read his thesis?
No, I've read his book. Let me explain what I'm talking about. He has noted in many earliest manuscripts, which are thought of as being copies of Quran in the Islamic tradition, have the word he replaced over with the word Allah in many places. So a scribe at some point has decided that
Look,
was
as I
incorrect.
said, I have not only read his book,
Okay.
we have responded to his book.
Okay.
And it's a book that is available in academia free of charge, of course, over 300 pages.
Okay, but he hasn't actually
can I
made any
finish my
opinion.
point? Can I make a point? Right. Because you're bringing him as a scholar who has an opinion on this issue about preservation.
Yeah, he is an expert in the field.
Right. According to who?
According to academia, according to Yasser Khalid, according to all of the other Quranic experts, he is an expert in that field.
He's an expert in what?
In Quranic studies in the original Aramaic language.
Original Aramaic language. Anyway, okay, besides the point.
The one with
Besides
the,
point.
France.
Yeah, of course. Expert in Aramaic language. I'm sure you will.
Are you saying he is?
No, I'm sure you'll reflect on it much later. Let's come back to this point. So the example he brings, for example, says this particular manuscript, say this is manuscript in top copy, right? Top copy manuscript, it has a particular correction step. So, according to what you've read, because you've read this book, he has compared with the other manuscript from the same time period. We are talking about producing what we call a stemma. So he has looked at manuscript from same region or different regions from the same time, maybe about the 8th century, 7th century, whichever manuscript top copy is from, right? I'm not going to help you with the dates now. So either he's brought manuscripts from before or after or contemporary time. And then he said, look, we have the same correction happening in all the other manuscripts, right?
No, I don't think it happens in all of them. Are you saying that?
No, I'm just giving you example number 1. And then I'm continuing with example number 2, 3, 4, up to 20. So has he done that with every example and he demonstrated that right? Yes, yeah?
He is doing it with manuscripts as he is studying them. He's taking note of them. For example, in his written work, 20 examples, he only picked 20.
Misunderstood my question.
Okay.
In his PhD thesis, he had about 800 examples. You haven't read it?
No, I haven't read it. I haven't said that.
The book says 20 examples,
Yes, that's-
but it has more than 20 anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So within these 20 examples, obviously as a good scholar, he would say, look, this is a manuscript, and we have compared with other manuscripts around the same time period, and we have found their corrections on those as well, because that's when people are corrupting it, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
Wrong. You haven't read his book, because he doesn't compare with other manuscripts.
No, I'm just talking with what you would do. You described the methodology. I agree with that.
But that's,
I
he
agree
hasn't
with
done
you.
that.
Yes, that's not the intention of his book.
Wait. What is he trying to show you?
He's trying to show you that there are differences between certain manuscripts and the standardized Hafs Quran.
Can I just say one thing here?
1924.
The brother raised the point about methodology.
Yeah.
You agreed that that would be the
Yes.
better methodology. Hold on a second.
No.
Please, hold on a second.
Okay.
You agreed that that would be the correct methodology.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be the fair, just methodology. Yeah. But he doesn't do that.
Has he done that in his PhD
But he
thesis?
doesn't do that.
He's doing this.
No. But the point is,
Oh yeah. How long does it take to
No.
go through all the different
The
manuscripts?
point is that he hasn't done that.
Yes. What he's done.
No. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
The point is that he's not done that.
Yes.
And now hold on. I haven't
My
finished
friend,
it.
I would agree with what you're saying.
Right.
I want to talk about what he is saying.
Therefore, when somebody doesn't do something that they are supposed to do to ensure that there is trust within a methodology, what should one conceivably do?
My friend, you need to understand.
One should put it aside
But not only this,
and
though,
not
only this.
trust it.
This is
Just to bring you in the reality scene here, because you are somehow divorced from reality in what happens.
why we say that?
Let me explain. So in our response to his book, we have shown 7, 8, 9, 10 other manuscripts from around the same time frame, roughly, right? Sometimes early, sometimes contemporaneous, sometimes a bit later, because we are talking about establishing a stem. And we have shown, let's say 8 other manuscripts has exactly the same word like we have on our Quran today.
Right, I agree.
Let me finish my point though.
Agreeing with you.
With every example, if we can demonstrate that we have more than one manuscript, from any manuscript that he brings, with the so-called corrections, we have many other manuscripts. Really?
That's like the Christian position.
Let me finish my point.
Not at all. Not at all.
Just to show you how insignificant his work is. The word is insignificant. So if we find for every example he brings, I bring you other 7 more examples of manuscripts, which is exactly the same reading as our manuscripts or other Quranic text today. It tells you and I and my brother here that the Quranic text that we read today is in line with our manuscript tradition, exactly preserved. So that means, how do we then explain those corrections? We go by looking at this particular example. Has this correction been made by the scribe by a mistake, a lapse of memory in writing? So you can see, for example, he writes at the end of a line and it comes to an alif. And then when it comes again to the next line, he repeats that alif again. Now, that is something he realized he didn't do. So this is a mistake that you'll find common in all manuscript editions, including biblical manuscripts.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So these corrections do not point to Qur'an's not being preserved, when we have other manuscripts with the same text of the Quran today. That points to Quranic preservation of our text. Do you agree?
No. Because your view of preservation, your version of preservation is not the same as the Christian version.
We're not talking about Christian preservation.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. What you described is basically a really good Christian argument.
Not at all.
But it does not apply to the Quran whatsoever.
Not at all.
They say that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. Well, we know that's not true. We can go to the earliest manuscripts and see variants in it.
Like what?
The ones that Daniel Brubaker has.
Which one? Give an example.
Okay, so in one of the manuscripts, I can't remember which one, I can find out if we need to, but there was repeated attempts to change the word he in many verses to the word Allah. It was written over in many of these manuscripts.
You know what? You should rather, instead of relying on this particular one individual, why don't
But that's a
you...
contemporary of scholarship. He is in the same bracket as Yasser Qadi. No.
Who said that?
They work together.
They don't work together.
They write together.
They don't write
They are
together.
contemporaries.
They don't work together. They don't write together. Yasser Qadi is not a Quranic scholar. Neither is Daniel Brubaker. Daniel Brubaker did his PhD thesis on...
He literally, that's his job.
Listen. Daniel Brubaker done a PhD.
Yes.
And that makes him a
He works
scholar?
for a university.
That makes him a scholar.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on a second.
What? His name's Doctor.
Okay.
Oh, he's a
my
doctor.
God.
So you're saying doctors aren't scholars?
So that makes him an expert.
So
Yes.
I gave him the comment made by
Do you know about Dr. Tayyara Abdullah?
No.
or Angela Newith, as I mentioned.
Do you know about
Or you're right, that's it.
Deroche?
No.
Angela Newith?
If you don't know about Deroche,
Okay.
and you think he's a scholar of the Quran, then you must be someone who is in evangelical Christianity. Is that right?
All I know is that Daniel
That's what they do.
Daniel Brubaker is
Can he
someone
speak?
who's...
Can he speak Arabic?
Can he?
Can Daniel Brubaker
yes,
speak Arabic?
to some degree. I've heard him say Arabic things, yeah.
If you
He
look
reads
at,
it
If
anyway.
you look at my Twitter exchange with him, now you realize I've exchanged with him, your so-called scholar. He makes so many basic mistakes in simple Arabic grammar that a child won't do, which I highlighted to him in his PhD thesis
Okay. People make mistakes.
and in his book.
Yeah, people make mistakes. I don't. That's not a
Do you
refutation. of
do you
someone's
understand
argument.
what I just said?
That's saying he made a
He
mistake somewhere.
doesn't even know basic Arabic language, and yet
Yes,
he's...
he does because he
No, he
translates.
doesn't.
Works, then I don't change it.
Do you know what I just said?
So you're telling me he can work
I-
with Yasser Qadi.
No, he doesn't work with Yasser
They
Qadi.
he's done videos where he literally takes an email from Yasser Qadi.
No,
Yasser
what-
Qadi
that-
peer-reviewed his work.
Which work did he do in collaboration with Yasser Qadi?
Not in collaboration. I'm saying they both work at universities. Yes.
That makes them work together.
I think what you're
they're peers.
I think what you're quoting is completely wrong. I'll tell you why.
Which part?
Yasser Qadi made a video against Brubaker.
Yes.
Yes.
because
Hold
they
on
are
a second.
contemporaries.
Hold on a second. Brubaker responded
Yes.
by some of the comments that Yasser Qadhi had made against him.
Yes, and the email he sent to
Hold
me.
on a second.
Yes.
That's not called working together.
When I say
What's
work,
the word?
That's
yes.
not called working together.
No, in scholarship,
That's
there's a
not called-
principle that when
that's
you
not-
write something
look.
like a PhD, you have to have it.
let-
You have to have it
listen to me.
evaluated by other scholars, such as
Qadhi was
Yasser
not
let me
a peer reviewer.
So he's not.
of
Yasser
Dr.
Qadhi has
Brubaker's
never
work.
read his.
In fact,
he's read his
in
work.
fact,
You know he's read his
in
work.
fact, who were the supervisors of Dr. Brubaker's work in his PhD thesis?
I don't know, but there would have
You
been
should
other
find
scholars.
out. You should find out.
There are other scholars
Hang
who he
on.
quotes.
How? Look, when you do your PhD, this is something that you need to really understand.
Basic
when
stuff.
you do your research,
That's basic, man.
when you do a research, you do a research under a particular supervision of other scholars, right? Your PhD supervisors. Who was his PhD supervisors? How much role and involvement did they have? He did it under Rice University.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So I really ask you, go and read his PhD thesis, read about the proficiency and expertise of his supervisors and how much they were involved in his work. Right? That's his PhD thesis. So why is he making simple grammatical mistake? Like, for example, you'd say Inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadir. You're not going to say Inna Allahu. Even a child who's just beginning to speak Arabic, they're not going to say Inna Allahu. Do you know why? Because after what comes after the word Inna, the particle Inna, it has to come from this form called Mansur. Inna Allaha, and the sign of the Fatha, and so on. A scholar, an expert, would not make such a mistake, in which he does, and which is being pointed to.
People make mistakes.
No, people don't make mistakes in simple Arabic grammar.
Well, that's not his native language, right? He had to learn it.
So if he doesn't know simple Arabic language, how is he going to be able to read what it says in a very old Arabic script?
Mate, I'm English,
language
and I
he
make
doesn't
mistakes
know
when I write
himself.
English.
Let me explain something to
I
you.
understand something. The language he doesn't know. So how is he going to read
He
what it
does
says?
know it because he translates it.
Let me explain
Just one
something.
moment, brother, and then I'll... For example, he talked about a particular example of how, this particular word is... I actually made a response, a video response, about issues of Hamza and how it sits in the Kursi, okay? Something very basic. Please watch that on Dawah.channel, yeah? Dawah.channel, this channel, and you will see that a scholar of this caliber who's making simple mistakes like this, of course is going to make a mistake in reading manuscripts. Then his reading, his interpretation, is it going to be faulty or is it going to be robust? If he doesn't know how to read.
Well, no, he doesn't know how to read it. He makes mistakes. I'll go into that.
No. If he doesn't know how to read.
Can I just address that point?
I'm pretty sure he can read Arabic.
Okay, can I just address that point?
He can read Arabic, yeah.
If your child is at school and is being taught by an English teacher, and you decide to sit in, and she makes basic errors of grammar and spelling, would you trust that? Hold on a second. Would you trust that teacher to teach your child?
Okay. It depends on why they're doing it. If they're making errors because they're having a bad day, sure, they're having a bad day. But if they literally don't know, then that's a problem.
So that's a problem,
I
right?
do believe he does
Would
know
you trust?
because it's his
Would
job
you
to
trust
know.
that teacher to teach your
And he's
child?
peer reviewed.
Would you trust that teacher?
If they're having a bad day, I won't have a problem with it.
No, repeatedly.
That's right. That's right. Repeatedly.
But as he said, oh, that was a mistake, and as he corrects himself,
He repeatedly makes the same mistake.
So I'm asking you the question again.
well, we'll see.
Would you trust that teacher?
Can I just ask?
No. Would you trust that teacher?
I've already gave my answer. If they're having a bad day, that's fine. But if they actually don't know English, then yeah.
Then yes, you have a problem. Right now, hold on a second. Right now, okay. So when Brother Mansur is pointing out
He doesn't know Arabic.
basic. Brother Mansur is pointing out basic errors in grammar in the Arabic language, a language which is necessary for you to be able to be a critical scholar within that language,
fact that he's
and
been
you find no
peer-reviewed
problem.
as a scholar,
Listen to me.
do you not think
Do you
that
understand
he's
how
valid?
peer review works?
Yes.
How does it work?
In universities,